While I was in the middle of getting dinner ready for my wife's entire family, I stepped out to the garage to grab a couple extra chairs. As I rounded the corner, I caught her brother's voice carrying over from the side yard. "I still can't believe you actually married that loser," he said. "Dad's right. You need to get a divorce before you wind up having kids and getting stuck for good." And then I heard Emily reply, without missing a beat, "Already working on it. My lawyer says we can probably take half his business, too." I just stood there for a moment, frozen. Then, without saying a word, I grabbed the chairs, walked back inside, and went right back to playing host, smiling like everything was fine. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was lit up with 47 messages, all of them frantic. That's when it really hit me, something had been off with Emily the whole week before that family dinner. And I don't mean the usual stress from work or me leaving my dirty boots in the hallway kind of off. No, this was something else. She kept glancing at her phone like it was a lifeline and quickly switching tabs on her laptop whenever I walked by. She'd step out to take calls in another room, whispering like she didn't want to be overheard. After 7 years together, you develop a sixth sense for these things, kind of like how I can walk into a room and tell if a wall's a few degrees off without needing a level. Now, I never imagined I'd be the guy writing one of these tell-all posts. I'm not into airing my dirty laundry online. But here I am, sitting at my kitchen table at 3 in the morning with a glass of whiskey, still trying to wrap my head around how my whole damn life unraveled in just 3 days. I gotta put this somewhere. So congrats, internet strangers, you're front row for the wreckage. A little backstory, I'm Jake, 34 years old. I dropped out of community college and started my own construction company from the ground up. Just me and an old beat-up truck at first. These days, I've got 5 solid crews running projects all over the county. It's not a massive empire, but it pays the bills and then some. My wife, Emily, is 32. We've been married for 7 years. I supported her all the way through law school, paid her tuition, covered rent, groceries, textbooks, everything, while I was out there busting my ass to grow the business. She comes from an upper-middle-class family. They never really liked the blue-collar guy their daughter brought home. Her dad, Jack, is some hotshot financial advisor. Her mom, Susan, sells real estate. And then there's her brother Harry, who acts like his business degree makes him some kind of genius. Truth is, I always kinda knew they looked down on me. I'd hear it in the way they talked about my little business or asked when I was planning to go back to school, as if building something with your hands was something to be ashamed of. But Emily always stood up for me. Or at least, I thought she did. Last Saturday was the annual spring dinner at our place. It's something Emily started a few years back to show off our home to her family. She loved playing hostess. I'd been up since 6 in the morning getting everything ready. Cleaned up the yard, pressure washed the deck, and got the smoker going for the brisket I'd been dry aging all week. She was more on edge than usual, snapping at me for little things, but I figured it was just the stress of having her whole family over. That always wound her up a bit. By 4 o'clock, everyone had arrived, her parents, Harry and his wife, and her younger sister Lily, who's still in grad school. Her mom walked in and immediately started commenting on how we'd arranged the living room furniture. Her dad jumped right into asking how business was going, in that condescending tone he uses when he's waiting for me to admit I'm struggling. Dinner was about ready. I'd already set the table with the good china, the wedding gift set we almost never use, but realized we were short 2 chairs. So I headed out to the garage through the side door to grab a couple extras. That's when I heard voices coming from just around the corner of the house. It was Harry and Emily, standing by the azalea bushes, sharing a cigarette. That alone was strange. She told me she quit smoking 3 years ago. I was about to call out to them when I heard my name. And I froze. Harry was saying something about how he couldn't believe she ever married me and how their dad had always been right. Said she needed to get out before she ended up trapped with a couple of kids and a life she didn't want. And then Emily, my wife, said she was already working on it. Said her lawyer figured they could take half my business, too. They laughed. Actually laughed. Standing there, joking like I was some kind of fool who didn't see the train coming. They even brought up some guy named Daniel, saying he was a way better match for her and how she'd wasted her best years with me while I was out playing construction. I don't know if you've ever had a moment where your whole world just cracks open like that, where the things you thought were solid suddenly feel like sand slipping through your fingers. 7 years of marriage. All the late nights I stayed up quizzing her before big exams. The trips we never took so we could afford her textbooks. The extra work I picked up to help pay off her student loans. All of it suddenly looked different under the weight of what I'd just heard. But I didn't say a word. Didn't storm around the corner and start yelling. Something inside me just went cold. Like a switch flipped. I backed away, silent, grabbed the chairs from the garage, took 3 long breaths, and put on the most convincing smile I could muster. On my way back inside, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked like myself. Calm. Collected. But inside, I was scorched earth. The rest of the dinner felt like a dream. Or a nightmare. I poured the wine. Carved the brisket. Smiled through gritted teeth at Jack's awful jokes. And watched Emily, the woman I thought I knew, carry on like nothing had happened. I kept staring at her, trying to figure out if I'd missed something all these years. Had she always looked at me with that subtle mix of boredom and disdain? Or was I only seeing it now? At one point, her mom actually complimented the food and asked me what my secret was. After all these years, now she wants my recipe. I explained the dry aging process like I was reading from a manual, while every part of me screamed. Lily, her sister, gave me this odd look from across the table. Kind of puzzled. Like she was trying to piece something together. Out of everyone in that family, she's always been the only one who treated me like a real person. Maybe she knew. Or maybe she was just starting to figure it out. Then came dessert. And with it, Harry raising a toast to family and future changes. He looked straight at Emily with this smug little grin. I raised my glass, clinked his, and drank. All the while imagining how satisfying it would be to smash that fancy crystal stemware right across his face. When they finally pulled out of the driveway around 12, Emily started tidying up, humming like she hadn't just shattered the life we'd built together. That damn humming, it was like she was proud of herself. I told her I'd take care of the dishes and she should head to bed. She kissed my cheek, smiled, and told me I was such a good husband. The sheer gall of that nearly made me throw up. Once she was out of sight, I sat down at her laptop. It was password protected now, something new. But I had a hunch. She's always reused variations of the same pattern. Took me 3 tries, but I was in. Emails to her lawyer dated back 3 months. The whole thing was laid out like a business proposal. She was waiting to file until she nailed down a partnership at her law firm, using my steady income to polish her image, then pulling the plug on us once her career was locked in. There were spreadsheets breaking down the value of my company, our joint accounts, even a detailed timeline for the divorce. Then I saw it, transfer records. She'd been quietly siphoning money into a separate account for months, always just under the threshold that would set off any alerts. It was slick. Cold. Calculated. The kind of move only a lawyer would know how to pull off. I opened our joint savings account. 20 grand, gone. The same 20 I'd been setting aside for the new expansion project. That was supposed to be our future. And then came the texts. A contact saved as just D. Daniel. Apparently, he wasn't just a better match, he was already warming the bench, waiting to be subbed in. Their messages went back half a year. 6 damn months. Half a year of lies while I kissed her goodnight and dreamed about building something real. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. Called in sick Monday morning, for the first time in 3 years. Instead of work, I walked into a law office. A buddy had recommended a guy named Joe. Straight shooter. I laid it all out for him, emails, texts, screenshots. He listened, quiet and focused, then hit me with the reality. In our state, she could go after half the value of my company. Even though she'd never so much as lifted a hammer or sent an invoice. Even though I bled for this business while she focused on chasing her own dreams. When Joe showed me the numbers, I damn near passed out. Everything I built, every late night, every early morning, cut in half and handed over to the same woman who was sharpening the knife behind my back. I remember just staring at him and asking, "So that's it? I just bend over and let this happen?" He started talking about settlements, about being civil, about minimizing damage. But my mind had already checked out. Something inside me cracked that day, quietly, but completely. That night, she asked if I was feeling any better. Brought me home some soup. Put her hand on my forehead like she actually cared. I played my part. Told her I was probably just coming down with something. Thanked her. Told her I loved her. She said it back without blinking. Like it meant something. Like she hadn't already mapped out my financial death. We sat on the couch and I watched her scroll through Instagram. She liked a picture her sister posted of the two of us from last Christmas. The caption said, #couple goals. I almost laughed right there. It felt like I was sitting beside a stranger wearing my wife's skin. Every smile, every comment, it all felt fake. Or maybe I was just finally seeing things for what they'd always been. I started wondering, was she always like this and I just missed it? Or did she change somewhere along the way? Maybe it doesn't matter. Not anymore. I'm not a guy who holds grudges. I let things go. I move on. If a contractor screws me, I cut them loose. If a client falls behind, I work with them. But this? This wasn't business. This was betrayal with a smile. That second night, I laid there watching her sleep, probably dreaming of her shiny new life with Daniel and my money. And something inside me hardened. A quiet, cold resolve. Her whole family had always looked at me like I was some dumb grunt. Calloused hands, no degree, probably thought I barely knew how to read a spreadsheet. What they didn't get was that you don't build a business from the ground up by being stupid. You need smarts. You need patience. You need to know when to hold back, and when to strike. The next morning, I started making calls. Bank. Business partner. A few of my bigger clients. By lunch, the first pieces were moving. By dinner, I had a plan. Emily wants a war. Then she's about to find out what one looks like. This isn't about dollars anymore. This is about showing her, and that entire smug family, exactly who they underestimated. The man they thought was a nobody is about to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. So here I am, 3 days out from that dinner, finalizing my blueprint for demolition. Like any job site, it starts with laying the foundation. Tomorrow. Everything changes. Emily thinks she's ahead of the game. But she has no idea what's coming. Neither does her father, her brother, or that clown Daniel. I spent 7 years supporting her dreams. Now I get to watch them crumble in real time. It was like someone sleepwalking through a minefield they'd built with their own hands. The second I watched her car pull out of the driveway, I got moving. First thing on the list, locking down my actual business. I rang up my accountant, told him we needed to meet ASAP, and not over the phone. No way I was having that conversation at the office either. Too many ears that didn't need to hear it. We met at a coffee place just down the block. Here's the deal. When you're hustling to grow a business and also footing the bill while your partner goes through school, things slip. You make trade-offs. Corners get cut. Sometimes the paperwork isn't flawless because you're running on fumes after 14-hour shifts. Emily knew that. Hell, back in the early days, she helped me file some of our taxes herself because we couldn't afford a real accountant yet. That meeting at the coffee shop. It opened my eyes. My accountant, let's call him Paul, looked like he'd barely slept. Turns out Emily had already been in touch with him, asking harmless questions about how to evaluate a business and what documents prove ownership. She said she was helping me prep for some imaginary investor pitch. Paul didn't think much of it at first, gave her a few general answers, but something felt off enough that he decided to flag it for me. And when I told him the truth about what was going on, his face just drained of color. "Jake, I need to show you something, he said, sliding his tablet across the table. He pulled up a stack of files showing my business transactions over the last few years. He pointed at the highlighted parts and said, "These don't quite line up." That's when it all started to make sense. Emily wasn't just getting ready to leave, she was laying the groundwork to make me look like I was mishandling company money. Little things, wrong dates, sketchy transfers between accounts, invoices that didn't follow our numbering system. It wasn't illegal. She wasn't sloppy like that. But it was enough to muddy the waters in a courtroom. Enough to justify bringing in a forensic accountant, someone who'd charge me thousands to poke around and eventually find nothing. But meanwhile, it'd slow everything down and burn through my time and money. So Paul and I got to work, spent 3 solid hours tracking every transaction, cleaning up the records, and creating a crystal-clear trail that proved the business was above board. We even fast-tracked some payments to vendors, knocked out a few equipment loans early, and made sure we had documentation showing Emily was never involved in the day-to-day. In the middle of that, I got a text from Lily, Emily's sister. That was weird. We'd always been cool, but we didn't text each other like that. She said she wanted to meet up for coffee. Said it was important. I told her Saturday morning would work, all the while wondering what the hell she needed to talk about. Next stop was the bank. Something Emily's brother said during dinner had been bouncing around in my head, something about their parents stepping in to help her out when the time comes. That stuck with me. And in construction, when you've got a gut feeling, you don't ignore it, it can save your ass. So I went straight to our financial advisor to see what was going on. And yep, turns out I was right. Emily had applied for a home equity line of credit against our house. Just 2 weeks prior. Now, that house is mostly in my name, I paid the down payment before we ever got married, and I renovated that place myself, boosting the value by nearly $100,000. I was still listed as a required signatory, thank God, but the application was already being processed. In another week, she would have had access to around $200,000, and I would have been on the hook for half of it. When I explained that I hadn't signed or approved anything, the advisor got real uncomfortable. But after I showed my ID and our marriage certificate, I was able to kill the application. Then I moved half our joint savings into my personal account, the exact amount I had personally contributed. Petty? Maybe. But a hell of a lot less than what she was trying to pull. I went home after that and did something I'm not exactly proud of. But when things are falling apart, sometimes you do what you have to. I installed tiny recording devices in the living room and bedroom, totally legal in our state since I live there too, but still, it crossed a line. I also set up a camera in our home office, aimed at her desk. Then I clipped the leash on the dog and went for a walk like everything was fine. Waved to the neighbors, tossed a ball to the Jenkins kid, scooped up some dog crap with one of those little plastic bags, and kept mentally mapping out the slow unraveling of my marriage. Just your average Tuesday. That night at dinner, Emily seemed off. She kept checking her phone every few minutes. When I asked about her day, she gave me these half-baked answers that didn't say much. Then her phone buzzed again, and I caught a glimpse of the name that popped up. Daniel. Who's Daniel? I asked, nice and casual, while twirling pasta around my fork. She froze, only for a second, but I saw it. Oh, new client at the firm. It's a time-sensitive case, she said, and then flipped her phone face down on the table. That tiny pause. It told me everything I needed to know. You spend 7 years with someone, you notice things. Must be important if he's texting you during dinner, I said, still playing it cool. Still acting like the laid-back husband. She gave me this tight little smile. You know how it is. Some people don't understand boundaries. The irony almost made me choke on my garlic bread. After we finished eating, she said she had to get some work done and ducked into the home office. I cleaned up the kitchen, made enough noise so she'd think I was busy, then eased down the hallway and stopped just outside the office door, which she'd left open a crack. I could hear her voice inside, soft, low, and way too intimate. That wasn't her work voice. Wasn't how she talked to her parents, either. That was her bedroom voice, soft, sultry, and way too familiar. You can't just call whenever you want, I heard her say. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Just be patient. Then, yeah. I miss you too. Every word was like another nail in the coffin of whatever feeling I still had left for her. I could feel the rage bubbling up, pushing hard against the walls I'd built to keep it down. I wanted to storm in there. Wanted to blow the whole thing wide open, end the charade right then and there. But that would have ruined everything I'd been setting up. So instead, I backed off. Walked back to the kitchen. Turned on the tap. Started rinsing dishes I'd already cleaned, just for the noise. Just to give my hands something to do while my brain mapped out the next move. See, in construction, timing is everything. Pour concrete too soon after it rains, and it'll never cure right. Rush the framing, and your whole structure's gonna sag over time. Revenge works the same way. You can't rush it. It needs time to settle, to harden. To be permanent. Wednesday morning, I casually left a stack of divorce papers, standard county forms I'd printed off, sitting on my nightstand. They weren't filled out, just sitting there in plain sight. When I got back from my shower, the stack had shifted just slightly. She'd seen them. Maybe even read them. But she didn't say a word. Neither did I. That day at work, I started making quiet moves. Reached out to a few clients who owed me favors, not for cash, but for intel. Didn't take long to dig up something interesting. Daniel wasn't just some random name on her phone. Turns out he was tight with Harry, Emily's brother. They went to college together. Same circles. Same kind of old money. Exactly the kind of guy her parents always pictured her ending up with. And here's the kicker, he'd been around. A lot. Family events I didn't go to over the years because I was grinding to build the business. Birthday parties. That ski trip. Even that damn cruise I skipped to finish a big project, the project that really put my company on the map. Through a mutual contact, I found out Emily and Daniel had a brief thing in college, before I ever entered the picture. Suddenly, this wasn't just cheating. This was something else. A plan. A setup. A long-ass game I never knew I was part of. While piecing all that together, I started building a document, a spreadsheet that tracked every dollar I'd spent helping Emily get through school. I'm talking tuition, textbooks, rent. The laptop I gave her for graduation. The bar prep course. The business suits she wore to interviews. Even all those late-night Ubers I paid for so she wouldn't have to ride the train after dark. Added it all up, $144,623. Not including what I could have made if I'd put that money into my business instead. Just the hard numbers. That night, she did something unexpected. She initiated sex, for the first time in what felt like forever. I almost laughed. The timing was too perfect. What was this, part of her strategy? Keep me satisfied and distracted while she lined up her golden parachute. I played along. Did what was expected. But inside, I felt nothing. Just going through the motions while she put on a show. Afterward, while she slept, I stayed wide awake. Just lay there, staring up at the ceiling fan, tracking its rotations like a metronome for my thoughts. And one question kept looping, how long had this been a lie? Was any of it real? Or was I always just the placeholder until Daniel was ready? Thursday morning came, and it was time for that coffee meetup with Lily. I got there early, killing time scrolling Reddit. Reading posts from strangers who'd been through stuff like this helped somehow. Some folks had wild advice, revenge plots straight out of a thriller novel. Others shared their own horror stories that made mine look mild. But that sense of solidarity? It mattered. Lily showed up looking a little uneasy. She's always been different from the rest of that family. More down to earth. Less obsessed with status. She ordered one of those fancy drinks with foam art and started picking at a muffin while we made small talk. Eventually, she took a deep breath and just laid it out. She'd known about Emily and Daniel for months. Caught them at the family's lake house during a weekend I missed, thanks to a burst pipe at a job site. She confronted Emily back then. Got the usual, it was a mistake, just a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Not even close. Recently, after one of those boozy family dinners I didn't attend, Emily spilled the whole plan to Lily. Stay married to me long enough to make partner. Then dump me and walk away with half of everything, land softly into Daniel's arms with a cushy financial safety net. Lily was telling me all this because she couldn't stomach it anymore. Said she'd always thought I was good for her sister. Never understood why the family acted like I was beneath them. I thanked her, genuinely. Didn't let on that I already knew most of it. Just asked her to keep this conversation private. She nodded, like she was relieved to finally get it off her chest. Gave me a hug before leaving and whispered that she was sorry. It was the first real, human moment I'd had in days. That night, I kicked off the next part of the plan. Set up a fake business emergency. Called Emily, told her we had a big crisis, major client threatening to walk, and we needed all hands on deck for a last-minute Friday night meeting. It was shaping up to be a potential financial disaster. I told her I really needed her input, and maybe even her family's perspective. She hesitated. Said she already had plans. I pressed a little harder, let my voice crack just enough to sound overwhelmed. Told her I was scared. Scared of losing everything we'd worked so hard to build. Played it like I was leaning on her, like I needed her. And that guilt hit the mark. She gave in. Said we could host a last-minute family dinner on Friday night. She'd call her parents and loop in Harry. Perfect. Friday morning, I spent a couple hours locking everything into place. Had the dining room all set up, printouts tucked neatly in a folder by my seat. Loaded the tablet with everything, screenshots, audio recordings, clean financial trails. The works. Swung by that bakery on the other side of town to pick up her favorite dessert. Figured I might as well go all in with the illusion. At work, I made sure every loose end was tied. Had a serious talk with my business partner, he's been my friend since high school, so he already knew some of the mess. Told him the full story. He was floored but backed me up without hesitation. Said he'd have my back no matter how this shook out. When I got home, Emily was already setting the table, using our good plates again, same ones from the last family dinner. It didn't escape me, that symmetry. Same cast, same setting, completely different plot. She was nervous, checking her phone every few minutes. When I asked if everyone had confirmed, she just nodded, barely looking up. Said her folks were bringing wine. Harry and his wife were on the way. I casually suggested inviting Lily too. Emily looked surprised, almost suspicious, but agreed and sent her a quick text while I watched. Everyone would be there. Every character in the story. Just how I wanted it. As I headed upstairs to shower and change, she called after me, asking what the exact client issue was, wanted to prep her thoughts, be ready for discussion. I told her we'd go over it during dinner. Only wanted to explain it once, with everyone present. She didn't push back. Under the water, I ran through my plan like I was rehearsing for a presentation. Figured out the order I'd drop the revelations in. Each piece timed for maximum impact. It felt like the weirdest kind of performance, part courtroom drama, part intervention, part final act of a doomed marriage. I put on the clothes she always said made me look put together, dark jeans, the sharp blue button-down, leather shoes instead of my usual boots. I wasn't just dressing for dinner. I was dressing for the final scene of the life we'd built. Downstairs, I heard her whispering on the phone, voice low and rushed. Thanks to the recorder in the living room, I knew I'd be able to listen back later. But I didn't need to. I already knew who was on the other end. Already knew what she was saying. Let her enjoy these last few hours thinking she was running the show. Let her think she was still 10 steps ahead. The doorbell rang. She jumped and ended the call in a hurry. Her parents arrived first. Her dad brought a stupidly expensive bottle of wine, shook my hand with that smug grip of his like he knew something I didn't. Harry showed up next, with his wife glued to her phone. Then came Lily. She didn't quite meet my eyes, but I saw the concern on her face. She knew a storm was coming, just didn't know the shape of it. Everyone gathered in the dining room. Emily put a hand on my arm, leaned in, asked if I was all right. And for just a second, her voice sounded so damn sincere that I almost wavered. Almost wondered if maybe I'd read too much into everything. Maybe I was the one spinning conspiracy from scraps. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, saw the name, Daniel, and immediately silenced it. And just like that, the doubt vanished. I sat down at the head of the table. My folder of evidence sat right next to my plate. Emily on my right. Her father on my left. Almost a perfect replica of that first dinner, the one where it all fell apart. Only this time, I had the secrets. This time, I was ready. As her mom chirped something about wine pairings, I noticed Lily watching me. Her eyes were wide. Curious. Nervous. She knew something was up. I stood up, wine glass in hand, and the whole table went quiet. All eyes on me. I looked around, pausing a second longer when I got to Emily. Before we dive into the reason I asked you all here, I said, lifting my glass, I want to make a toast. To family. To loyalty. And to finally seeing things for what they really are. The confusion that spread across their faces. Worth every second of preparation. They didn't have a clue what was coming. Neither did she. I shook my head. That's all I could do. Because what was left to say? She'd already said everything that mattered, just not to me. To Harry. To Daniel. Probably to her mother too, if I had to guess. Everyone except the one person who'd put in the work. Who'd believed in her. I looked around at the wreckage. Wine soaking into the rug. Shards of ceramic scattered like shrapnel. Our good plates, now broken just like the illusion they used to serve. The perfect metaphor, honestly. Jack, I said, calm but firm, if you ever put your hands on me again, I won't be this polite. He sneered, still trying to shake Harry off his arm. You'll hear from our attorney. Our attorney? I said, laughing under my breath. You already picked a side. Emily finally stood, shaking. Dad, stop, she said, but he didn't even hear her. He was too busy raging at the insult of someone like me standing his ground in his presence. I turned to her. You didn't just betray me, Emily. You lied to everyone in this room. And you let them keep believing you were the victim. You weaponized their love, their loyalty. She opened her mouth, eyes wet, lip trembling, but no words came out. Because there weren't any left that would work on me. Please, she finally said. Can we just talk? Sure, I said. In court. That was the moment it really landed for her. Her face changed, not just panic, but something deeper. The realization that she'd miscalculated. That the fallback plan, the teary apology, the desperate seduction, the family defense team, it wasn't going to save her this time. Harry, pale and still hunched over his phone, muttered something under his breath. I didn't catch it, but his wife did. Her face hardened. She stood up and walked out of the room without saying a word. Probably the smartest one in the house. Jack was still fuming. Emily's mother had started crying. Lily, bless her, was quietly stacking broken plates on a kitchen towel like none of this surprised her. I looked at Emily one last time. You could have just left me, I said quietly. You could have said you were unhappy. You didn't have to gut me on the way out. Jake. No, I stepped back. I'm done being your safety net. Then I walked out. Not stormed, not ran, just walked. Calm, steady, free. I didn't look back. Not when Emily called my name. Not when Jack yelled another threat. Not even when Lily followed me to the porch, touched my arm, and said, that was brutal, but it was brave. I just nodded. Because I wasn't interested in being brave. I was interested in being done. There's nothing left to say. I opened the front door and told them, you all need to leave now. Harry practically dragged his father out, and Lily lingered at the door, pausing to whisper, I'm sorry. I always thought you deserved better. Before I knew it, it was just Emily and me alone in the wreckage of our dining room. Where are you going to go? She asked softly. I already booked a hotel room. I'll be back tomorrow for my things, when you're at work, I replied. You planned all this, she murmured, a note of disbelief in her voice. I learned from the best, I shot back as I picked up my pre-packed overnight bag. As I stepped outside, she called after me, you'll regret this. But I was resolute. My father wasn't bluffing about the lawyers, and I didn't have time for empty threats. Some foundations, I realized, are so badly damaged that there's no rebuilding on them. That night at the hotel, I managed to sleep better than I had in months. The next day, while Emily was at work, I went back home and gathered what truly mattered, my clothes, my tools, a few family photos, even my dog's stuff. I left my key on the counter and later moved into a small apartment near my workshop. I wasn't hiding, I was just carving out a space for myself. I also called my employees to let them know I'd be working remotely while I handled these personal matters. For a couple of days I stayed off social media, ignored all non-urgent emails, and focused solely on setting up my new place. Even the dog seemed to pick up on the shift. Animals always know when something's off at home. On the third morning, I finally turned on my phone. It exploded with notifications, 47 WhatsApp messages from Emily, each one swinging between furious rage and desperate pleading. The early messages screamed in all caps, "How dare you embarrass me, how you've ruined everything." Then her tone slowly shifted. "Jake, please call me. We need to talk. I know I made a mistake, but we can work through this," one message pleaded. By message 32, she was bargaining, "I'll go to therapy. I'll cut off my family. Just please talk to me." Then, message 46 simply read, "I'm sorry." The final two messages came in at 3:15 in the morning. I scrolled through them without replying, feeling nothing but numb emptiness, like finishing a hard job only to realize that no one ever really appreciates the work. Amid that scrolling, another message popped up, "Jake, I know you've read these. Please, just tell me what you want. Money? The house? I'll sign whatever you want." After everything, she still didn't understand, this wasn't about money at all. It was about betrayal, years wasted, and a future stolen. Finally, I texted back, "I've already sent the divorce papers to your office. I just want this over, and done quickly." Almost immediately, her reply hit, "Can we meet? Please. Just to talk." But before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Joe, my lawyer. Apparently, Rachel, Daniel's wife, had reached out to him. After I'd shown her the evidence, she did some digging and uncovered that Daniel had pulled similar schemes with other women. She wanted to compare notes for their divorce proceedings. As Joe laid out the next steps, I looked around my new, sparse apartment, a mattress on the floor, boxes still waiting to be unpacked, and a life that, for now, had boiled down to just being on the move.